Hi, everybody. This lesson is going to talk about subject-verb agreement. You work through verb tense and active voice as your last grammar, and now we're going to build on that verb understanding. Okay? We're going to look at the problems with subject-verb agreement, and that's when subjects and verbs don't match. So in any sentence, the subject and the verb has to match or agree in number. So if the subject is singular, the verb also has to be in singular form. And if the subject is plural, the verb's always got to be plural as well. So that's what agreement means. Subject and verb agree in number. For instance, in this first sentence, skydiver is the subject, it's singular. Jumps is a singular form of the verb. Skydivers, and the second one is plural, so we have to use the plural form of the verb, which is jump. So how do you know what the form of the verb is? Well, regular verbs, which is the vast majority of the verbs in the English language, follow a standard pattern. Okay, they have two verb forms in the present tense, one that ends in S and one that has no ending. So if the subject is third person, if it's he, she, or it, or if it's singular, so singular subjects and or he, she, and it, we always use the verb form that ends in an S. Jumps, runs. For a plural noun, plural subject, first person I and you, we use the verb form with no ending. Jump, run. So singular, he, she, and it has an S. Plural, I and you has no ending. Okay, so I put it on this chart here. So first person and second person have no S. Okay. He, she, or it, they have an S. So how do we figure out if our subject and our verb agree, if they match? The first thing we're going to do is locate the subject of the sentence. So Jeff bite his fingernails all the time. The subject is Jeff. All right, so then we say, is Jeff first person I, we? Is it second person you? Or is it third person he, she, it, or they? Well, Jeff is a he, so Jeff is third person. So then we say, all right, is Jeff singular or is it plural? There's one Jeff, so Jeff is singular. So then we fix the verb. Remember, third person he, she, it, and singular always end in S. So if the subject, Jeff, is third person singular, what would the correct form be? Bites. Okay, so try it on this one. Find the subject, singular or plural, and then which verb form would it be? Tell. I is the subject, I is singular, it's first person, so we pick tell. Okay. So there are 5 trouble spots that often signal subject-verb agreement problems. And that's when the verb is a form of be or have or do, when there's words that come between the subject and the verb, when the sentence has a compound subject, when the subject is an indefinite pronoun, or when the sentence is flipped and the verb comes before the subject. We want to make sure if we're creating sentences that have these trouble spots in them, that we want to make sure that we are picking the correct subject and verb. Now, be, have, and do are irregular verbs. They aren't standard verbs. They aren't run, jump, kick, eat, dance. Okay? These verbs can cause problems for writers who, whenever we speak, we sometimes use the same form every time we speak. Or if we're very lazy in our speech, we use the word be. Okay, it's not correct. So we have to know what the verb forms of be are. And they are am, are, is, are. So first person am, second person are, third person is. First person are, second person are, third person are. Okay, so that's the present tense of be. Feel free, by the way, to pause this video whenever you're watching it and take notes. The past, be, first person was, were, were. So see, it doesn't follow that add an S or don't add an S. Okay. The same thing with the verb have. Have, has, have. The same thing with do. Do, does, do. It doesn't just follow the add the S. Okay, so you want to make sure that you know the verb and you pick you know the subject and you pick the verb accordingly. So in this sentence up here, I am, is, are a believer in maps. The subject is I. I is first person and it's singular. And we're looking for the form of be, first person singular. So it would be I am. Same thing with here. We have be. Okay. We have to figure out what our subject is. And then singular, plural. Good. Okay, so it's is. So now we have the verb have, okay, which is a form of had. So the subject is Jocelyn, right? First, second, third person. Singular or plural. So we would pick has. Jocelyn has. So follow those steps we talked about before. You just might want to need to have the chart of the irregular verbs in front of you so you can pick the correct one. Okay. The second problem issue is when there's words that come between the subject and the verb, okay, like a prepositional phrase or a dependent clause. We have to make sure that we're picking the proper subject so that we can identify singular, plural, first, second, third person. Okay. Sorry about this PowerPoint. I cannot get these. Ah. Hey, look at this. Okay. I can get these off now. All right. So I took a nap on my bed and woke up after dinner. We want to put prepositional phrases in parentheses and forget about them because they cannot be the subject of a sentence. So on my bed and after dinner are prep phrases. Okay, the subject is never in there, so we narrowed our sentence down to I took a nap and woke up. So what's the subject? I. Okay. And that then will help you find the correct form of took and woke. Okay. So you want to make sure, like this one, let me delete it here. On a tight schedule is a prep phrase. Okay. So students is the subject. Students is plural, it ends in an S. So we have to pick students know. If you thought schedule was the subject, schedule singular, you wouldn't say students on a tight schedule knows. It's students know. So by identifying those prepositional phrases, it helps you pick the correct subject of the sentence. Okay. If there's a dependent clause, the same thing. Put your dependent clauses in parentheses because subjects are never independent clauses. Typically, those clauses, those groups of words start with who, whose, whom, that, or which. For instance, Dave, who is one of my brothers, distract or distracts. This who is one of my brothers, is a dependent clause. You can put it in parentheses and forget about it. Dave is the subject. Dave is singular, so we want to make sure that we pick Dave distracts because our singular has an S. Okay. If we have a compound subject, there's two or more subjects. If they're joined by and, they automatically become a plural. If they're joined by or nor, you pick the subject that is closest to the verb and go with it. So if they're joined by and, it's plural. If they're joined by or nor, you go with the one closest to the verb. So either Jocelyn or Dan helps me stay focused when I have a long paper to write. Well, we have a compound subject here, Jocelyn or Dan. So if it's joined by or, we pick the subject closest to the verb. And in this case, it is Dan. Dan is singular, so Dan helps. Okay. The fourth issue is when the subject is an indefinite pronoun. Okay. A lot of times those indefinite pronouns are followed by prepositional phrases or independent clauses. Okay. And the subject is never in a prepositional phrase or dependent clause. Okay. These are just kind of what you have to memorize. There are indefinite pronouns that are always singular. Another, anybody, anyone, anything, each, either, everybody. This list here is always singular. It takes the singular form of the verb. There are ones that are always plural as well. Okay. Your textbook has a list of those. Let me see if I can find the page while you're reading over that. Pronoun. Indefinite. 514, 516. That might be the page number. Yes, page 516 has a list of ones that are always singular, always plural. 69 and 570. So page 569 and page 570. Is about subject-verb agreement. Okay. So you want to look at those. Okay, make sure that you know those. So for this sentence, of my worst habits is a prep phrase. So we cross it off. So one is the subject, and one is always singular. So our singular form of to be is. So therefore, it would be one of my worst habits is. And the last issue might come whenever you have the verb. It's an inverted sentence, and the verb comes before the subject. Okay. They're typically questions. In question form, it inverts, the verb comes before, or sentences that begin with here or there. Okay. For instance, in questions, where is the theater? Or are you leaving? What we do here is we flip it. You turn the question around as if you were going to answer it. So instead of saying, where is the theater? You say, the theater is here. Theater is the subject. It's singular. It's third person, so we have to pick is. For the second one, are you leaving? We flip it to make it a statement. You are leaving. You is the subject. Are then would be the correct verb form. We do the same thing when the sentences begin with here or there. Here is your purse, or there are the car keys. We want to flip them to help us find the subject. Your purse is here. Purse is singular. We pick is. The car keys are there. The car keys is the subject. It's plural, so we pick are. Okay.